Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Man, everyone knows the last 2 weeks has been absolutely, 3 weeks has been absolutely crazy. This is what happens when Bass and MLF schedule these events back to back to backs, right? And also, you know, scheduling them all the time. And so, you know, it kind of raises a lot of questions. I had a ton of people, some of them, man, just hurt. Like, it's freaking crazy. That feel like they got to defend the Johnston boys and all this stuff, man. And all this crap. I just can't understand it. And my perspective might be different than a lot of other people's perspectives, and I totally understand that. But I think I've been, I might have been wrong about some things, in terms of like the rookie and the legacy, and because I think the legacy does have something. They do have a point, that I might not have considered. Because a lot of the stuff that these guys do on the elite level, it does trickle down to people like us. And so when you see guys like Johnston rolling up on day leaders, day 1, day 2, I mean, I don't care what people really do on day 1 and day 2. To me, that's like the circus. But when you get to day 3 and day 4, that's where the respect, I think, the unwritten rule that a lot of people talk about, things you just don't do, right? I think comes into play. And a lot of that has come down through the tradition of the tournaments. I don't believe that the way Bass in this media decade, okay, I don't really think that Bassmaster is really kind of running things in what the tradition of what Ray Scott would like or want. And as a fellow Scot, I don't really like how it's going. I don't think that it's, what little, having met Ray Scott, but what little, I know of in totality of a Ray Scott, I don't think he'd be happy. And I think that's bigger than all of this, in my opinion, if you're an old timer, or someone from my generation. So I think the legacy guys do have that right in terms of, man, you just don't do that, because what happens is everybody's watching that. And then you go out to your Potomac River, you go out to your, your James River, and if you're from where I am, and then people just do it's okay. Then it just becomes okay to roll up on somebody who's on a spot who they see with their binoculars. Trust me, that happens all the time, okay? Now, so that's a valid point that a lot of people that have messaged me and commented on the latest videos I've done. So I'm trying to keep an open mind about it. But I mean, I do think that when you start seeing stuff repeatedly on the Elite Series and on the Bass Pro Tour go down, whether it was Cayuga last year or stuff like that, people down, to the local level do start behaving in the same way, and that's not good for fishing. So I got a lot of messages about Chris Johnston, and it amazes me the misinformation that's out there. I try to at least speak my own opinion. Obviously, this is my own opinion. I'm just one schmuck on YouTube, but I try to keep it real for everybody, and it doesn't matter whether I like somebody or not. Like, I don't have anything against the Johnston boys, but that doesn't it doesn't excuse what went down on day 3. It just doesn't. And Chris admitted, if you go back through all the feeds, if you go and look on like everybody who's doing commentary on the St. Lawrence River. Now remember, it was Bass Pro Tour, then Bassmaster, and I've tried to lay off the Johnston boys for now, because I was waiting to see what was going to happen at the Toyota Series, like in the numbers and the catches at St. Lawrence, because that's going down right now, and kind of see like, okay, what happens in that event, because obviously a lot of spotlight has been shown on over the last 3 weeks on the St. Lawrence River, different areas of the river, whatever. So the argument is like that the spot belonged to the Johnstons, and I'm like, that kind of like belief system is really what's wrong with fishing. Nobody owns spots. that spot, and this notion that Chris Johnston located that spot, found that spot, it's his spot, you know what? It's just not true. Like, again, we think because an angler was on live, and I have a direct experience with this, okay? Because the Potomac River has been a river that I fished my entire life, along with the James River. And both of them host events. Both of them, MLF, Bass, BFLs, Toyota Series, Invitationals, Opens, okay? These people need to stop acting like this spot belonged to the Johnsons. That spot had been fished forever, okay? It's a community hole. They didn't make it a community hole, okay? What they did was they caught a shit ton of fish on that spot on a stream. And now that we have cameras in the boat, now that we have live streaming, he may have made that spot well known outside of the New York regional area, New York, Vermont area, okay? Much like Champlain has this issue too. Because someone's on Bass Live or on MLF Live and they smack them and almost get 30 pounds of smallies, or they hit the century mark or whatever. These people out there think that that person found that spot. No, that person may have made the spot famous because they were on a live stream in a tournament. But people have been fishing those areas and those stretches of the St. Lawrence River forever, okay? And I liken it to Potomac River. Like, I mean, people, you watch the stuff and it's all kind of media projection about how, like, a Lucas or somebody like that, found a spot in the Blue Plains in DC and won an MLF event, and everybody's known that spot forever. I've known that spot since I was freaking 15 years old. Okay? Or the Spoils, or like Greenway, or like places like that. It's like an event comes to town and, like, look, they're fishing community holes. Our community holes. Those are the holes that they're fishing in Mattawoman Creek. Our community holes that we fish all the time throughout the year. Okay? They're just doing it with a live camera in the boat, showing everybody across the country the quality of largemouth bass that exist in the Potomac River. Okay? But not one single one of those anglers that's on the Bass Elite Series today or on the Bass Pro Tour today owns any of those holes in the Potomac River. And I would dare say that the Johnston boys don't own that hole or that ledge in the St. Lawrence just because they may have smacked them in an event one day and it was broadcast to everybody, and suddenly they think they own it, where they can put a flag in it. Well, there was probably a tournament right after that, a tournament before that, a tournament the next month, the next season, where people have been fishing that all the time, okay? So I just find it very hard to believe, people believe and accept that a spot is a guy's spot because of how they performed on it 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, or it's a spot. Like, you don't think anybody's fishing that ledge, Chris? You don't think anybody's fishing that Potomac River, those spots in the Potomac River that have been made famous now because of live streaming? So that's kind of like where I'm at with that. Like, I've gotten a lot of hate about, oh, Chris was there on day one. No, he wasn't. Like, people just don't know the truth and don't know the reality. You can, if you take the time and listen to all the interviews and put it all together, you can kind of figure out what really happened. And the fact of the matter is, after day two, Chris Johnston was, below 30. Like, he was not going to win Angler of the Year if he had finished probably in the 30s in that event. Jacob Fouts probably would have won Angler of the Year, or maybe Trey McKinney would have won Angler of the Year. I mean, you don't know. But he knew on day three that he had to make a change and move the needle. And he made that decision as a man. He made that decision and said in a video, himself, in his own words, exactly what his intent was going to be. He said it. He should have just kept his mouth shut and not said anything. And still not say anything. But that's not how things are today. Everybody wants everybody to go to YouTube and go to Instagram and go to Facebook and, give an interview to a podcast or whatever. That's just the world that we live in today. But at the end of the day, he wasn't there on day one and was there for just a little bit on day two. And it wasn't until he went out and we know what was going on in Lake Ontario. So that bite was not happening with those swells and all that. So that's just, that's just really it is. Just listen to what people tell you, okay? They will show you who they are. They will show you what, and then don't make excuses for them. Like, okay, you did it. We all know what you did. You've got to live with that. And if you're cool with not having the respect of a lot of people, so be it. You still won with an asterisk, in my opinion, with a great big asterisk, because had he not done that on day 3 and smacked the crap out of him, he's probably not the Angler of the Year of the Elite Series. So he made a call to benefit himself, not Bass, not really the integrity of the sport. If you listen to people who believe in tradition, okay, so that's how that goes. The other thing I'm going to talk about really quickly is because, man, this just happened again. I don't know if any of you guys have been following the Wes Logan accident incident, but this just happened again on the Upper Bay. I don't know. You guys leave in the comments or give me a call or something and let me know about this, because this is really out of my depth. This is not something that I have like, a ton of knowledge concerning it. But this is independent of the Wes Logan thing, this is the 4th or 5th incident this year alone. We've had 3 incidences in my area, the Upper Bay and the Potomac, with this. I'm not sure. They may all been Yamahas too. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check on that. But regardless, man, I don't know what is going on, but these engines coming off these newer boats, there's something going on in the manufacturing process. There's either that, or there's something going on with the aluminum, like the quality of like the actual metal, which we all know what's been going on with supply chain. We all know what's been going on in the boating industry for like the last 3 years, really since COVID. I mean, I don't know what the manufacturing, but it seems to me, you guys let me know, you guys that have way more experience, in terms of the boater side, in terms of owning different boats over the years, as this quality is, like maybe the boats are getting lighter, we're trying to make them lighter, make them go faster, I don't know, but it just seems to me this year alone, really the last like 2 seasons, we're seeing a lot more issues with engines literally freaking just snapping off, right? I really think one of the things that's going to happen, because I get a lot of messages from people who are like, what do you think the rules are going to be? Like right now it's where do we think Bass, we probably won't know where Bass is going to be next year until October, but like where do you think Bass is going to be next year? BBT Tour schedule's already out, things like that, but also I always get a lot of questions about what I think, like what rules do I think that Bass should implement, or MLF. The leash is probably going to be a rule that if it doesn't already exist, I don't think that it does, where it's required. And what does that say about the manufacturing process, that now an organization may have to require all of its anglers as part of its equipment to have a leash? Because of these incidences. If you look at the video, that one with Wes Logan, man, like I personally, again, out of my depth, just as observation, I don't think he hit anything. I don't. I think that thing just snapped. I think because now on the Upper Bay, the incident on the Upper Bay that just happened, if you've been out on the Upper Bay, if you've gone out of Anchors Marina, or you've gone down to the flats that way, there's a lot, and there's a lot more because of Debbie, debris that always works its way up towards, Northeast Maryland. And it's not uncommon. A lot of us have hit, like I could tell you, I mean, I've been in boats that have hit, or have hit, in the spoils area, which is like between DC, Maryland, and Virginia, with the bridge and all that stuff. You can tear props up, okay? But it used to be very uncommon to like rip engines off. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's something going on with the aluminum and the metal in these boats now, as opposed to say 5-10 years ago, in my opinion. I just can't explain why there's been so many instances where guys are dropping engines after hitting something, or not. I don't think he hit him. I think it's very unlikely that there was a boat dock or anything where he was, when that happened. If you look at the swells, I think either the wear on the aluminum, as it comes in, because it looks like it snapped, and then obviously you've got the other damage, just like everything else. When something snaps, it damages everything else. And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if they do a little diagnostic on the aluminum, because I haven't seen any photos really of all of it, just other than the back of the boat kind of thing. I don't know if anybody else has had that experience or not, or known anyone, but that's happened 4 or 5 times now. And again, what happens to a Wes Logan, it becomes, like I was talking about the Johnston boys. When you do stuff on a live, or something happens, or there's video, and you're a major elite angler, or a major Bass Pro Tour angler, it obviously gets amplified, right? But this stuff is happening to boat owners. Like, I'm guessing all across the country, and a lot of people don't hear about it on YouTube or whatever, because it's just a local guy in his boat. But these boats now, man, these boats now are more expensive than ever, and yet it seems the quality of them, in terms of maintenance and wear and tear, is going south. Like, I mean, I don't know. If you guys, if this has been happening and just not gone reported, let me know in the comment section. But it just seems to me like this is starting to really, like, ramp up. Like I said, this is now the 4th or 5th incident. Now, obviously, the Wes Logan incident was not here in our area, but there have been four or five incidents here over the since last fall into this year on these boats that are, like, 3 years old, 3 years old or newer, that are causing, like, really major problems, and potentially, and it's not going to be long before one of these actually ends up really, really hurting somebody. If you don't have a leash, then that thing could kill you. Like, we've seen it. I've seen it on the Upper Bay where a guy will hit, it just drops. It's just like, and that he just spins out. Like, but the engine didn't rip off. You know what I mean? And so we'll see what happens. I don't know. I mean, it's not rising to the level that, manufacturer, I think Wes ran a Skeeter, I think. You'll have to, run some kind of, investigation into, like, obviously, boats are replaceable. He can get a new boat, you can't replace an angler, but you certainly can always replace a boat. But still, it seems like that's a lot going down. We're waiting to hear from MLF. Obviously, the cameraman has been interviewed, from what I understand. I believe all of his MLF issued gear has been, I don't know if we'd say turned in or confiscated or whatever. I had heard, again, this is just, until we know the facts, this, of course, it is what it is, that his phone was asked for, and so I don't know if the cell phone's being operated, I don't know if MLF issues their cameraman communication device, cell phones from MLF. I don't know that. I haven't had that confirmed yet. But if it is an MLF phone, they obviously can demand to have that be provided to them so they can examine the phone. Now, here in light of this, I had a follower on my YouTube channel ask me about this. If that is the case and he turns in a phone that's been wiped, I think that JT Tompkins' DQ should be reversed. If there's no actual evidence that would have risen to the level in which you would poly somebody, I think if that's the way that Bass wants to go, is we can poly anybody anytime we want, then that's where you run in to an integrity issue. Because the fact of the matter is, random polygraphs, okay, are different than being able to polygraph anybody you want. That's a subjective tournament director or tournament, organization decision, and it just seems like this year, the rookies on the Bass Elite Series got polygraphed more than anybody else. Now, and people can make the argument, well, they brought that on themselves. Okay. That very well may be true. But the fact of the matter is, there are a lot of guys who got repeatedly polygraphed all season long this year in historic fashion. Be interesting to ask Bass and have Bass reveal how many polygraphs they gave this year. Truth certification test. Sorry, I want to be politically correct. Truth certification tests that they've given in 2024 compared to 3, 22, 21, and 20. Because I have been told it is way more than the last few years. And you can make a direct correlation to the rookie class coming in. And for whatever reason, have they brought it on themselves? Maybe so. You can make that argument. Smith Lake and different things that have gone down. You can make that argument. But again, if you go through, MLF goes through this investigation on process of their people, as well as their angler and that cameraman, and then there's no actual physical evidence that it's been, because remember, an angler said he saw that these messages were being sent to anglers, including JT Tompkins. Okay, so he said he saw that. And then he told an angler on the Bass Tours. I've covered him in other videos. And then it was that angler on the Bass Elite Series that filed the protest against JT Tompkins. He targeted JT Tompkins, okay, with his protest. And the reason why he targeted JT Tompkins is he was either told, shown, or screenshotted messages from the cameraman to, allegedly, JT Tompkins. Well, if none of that exists, if they can't locate any of that, if they can't verify any of that, if they can't, then it just becomes, well, let's just target the rookie and, if they give him a polygraph and he passes it, oh well, he passes it. But maybe he won't. Like, that's not how it's supposed to work. Okay? You gotta have, that's why I don't understand if what's been reported that Bass was notified on Monday of this issue, but then didn't notify JT until Friday after day 2. Why was there what were they doing over the course of those 5 days? Were they waiting to see how well JT did day 1 and day 2 before they would step in because of the Rookie of the Year? Is that really how it's supposed to work? Like, I mean, if something rises to a rules violation when it's brought to your attention on Monday, why don't you give him the polygraph the next morning to prevent him from being able to fish at all? There's something really, really weird about that decision making. And I tend to agree with a lot of people. You can follow like Slick Johnston, you can follow a bunch of people that have been very, very critical of leadership at Bass. I haven't wanted to go down that road just because, but that seems really odd that you would be given the information on Monday and not do anything about it until Friday after the event had started. What'd you do in those 4 or 5 days? Did you call MLF? Like, did you have any communication with the leadership team, the tournament director, and all that in MLF? Did you have any information get sent back to you? Any documented because the MLF investigation didn't begin until after the weekend. So MLF wasn't even investigating their cameraman. So the timing of all this is rather suspicious, depending on who you are and who you ask. Like, I don't understand it. But that's where we're at this week. Just covered a couple things. We're going to try and keep doing these. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Again, always send me a message if you have any questions. Feel free to comment on my other socials, or hit me a direct message or text me. And if there's any information that you're looking for, I can try and get it for you. We'll keep the ball rolling. But I'll try and do these like every couple days. As more information comes out. And obviously we've got a lot going on this off season. We've got the BFL Super Tournaments coming up, throughout the region. James River coming up. I think they're down on Hartwell. I think we're just down on Hartwell as well. So there's a couple more, a lot of supers coming up here next week or two. But they are underway for BFL, so we're going to try and get some more information out of that, see how it goes. And plus the Toyota Series. Kind of talk to the guys fishing up on the St. Lawrence after all this has happened, and what they saw and what's going down, what the vibe's been with those guys, after all this drama that's kind of hit really both series here in the last few weeks. All right, guys.